just to give you a sense of how bad we are, Democratic Party is less popular than Elon Musk right now. That should be like a wake-up call how bad.
Wherever I go, people want to talk about politics. And if they're Democrats, they want to know what's going on with my party? Where do we go from here? How do we get out of the political wilderness? So I thought, why not sit down and talk with Democratic leaders, veterans of the party, and people who are thinking about the future. So I invited Rahm Emanuel right here to my office to answer those questions. You like my office?
I didn't know this was your
This
office.
is my office.
Yeah, I do like your office.
Yeah, it's my girl cave.
Okay, we're gonna have to improve candy allotment though, if I can. Once...
Do you want candy?
No, I just thought I'd say that as I put you on defense.
What's so funny about that?
I don't know. So we've known each other 30 years. Somebody say, yeah, here. Yeah, we're gonna do some takeaways on your 30 years here.
We have
A rendezvous, yeah.
How would you describe this political moment that we're in right now?
How much time we got?
We've
Well,
got
this is
so much time.
This is a moment of great disruption.
Yeah.
And I used to joke with President Obama, people hate the status quo, and they're not too excited by change either. Mm-hmm. And so this is great disruption. This is what people wanted, and then they're not really happy with it very quickly. So that's one. I think there are three big seminal kind of moments in the last 20 years, so I don't think it's particular to 2024 versus 2020 if you think of them on electoral politics. The Iraq War, the financial meltdown, and China emerging in the world economy. And all of those have one thing in common, which is the establishment makes off like bandits and the public gets screwed, and the establishment, after having made a mess of it, acts like they have no responsibility and things should just continue as they are. And so basically people, and Donald Trump gets this as a zeitgeist, I will be the hammer for your revenge. Mm-hmm. They are, and have every right to be, furious. So those, I think, where you are. Then there's a little bit of kind of changing. If you look at the Democratic Party, kind of in the past, we're the party of kind of big change agents, personality, John Kennedy, President Obama, they're big personalities. And the Republicans was, the CFO becomes the COO, the COO becomes the CEO.
So that's true. It's the next in line.
Yeah, and Bob Dole, 1996. Why? Because I was the CFO, and now I'm get to be CEO. Donald Trump shakes that all up. And their party now is personality, character, big change.
Do you still think Democrats
and we were more we became CFO, becomes CEO. And I think we're about to start our process of the big change.
You do? You think so?
I think so. Yeah.
Because the whole sort of zeitgeist of the Democratic Party has been, at least maybe since Kennedy, is Democrats like to fall in love. You don't think that's true anymore?
No, I think that's the DNA still exists for falling in love.
And Republicans, by the way, fall in line, which they obviously did not do with Trump. That's why they elected him. Yeah. Maybe they are. Now.
There's Trump 1 and Trump 2, which is we're shorthanding a lot of conversation here for time. But I do think, I don't know, so I think that's where the party is. I also think that's where the politics is. And it's not, look, we have a very particular take on this as an American take. Not every country went through an Iraq war built on a lie and the elite never held accountable, or a financial meltdown, people lose their homes and the elite never accountable, or we left Battle Creek, we're seeing Wisconsin and negotiated against China by themselves. But if you look at the developed world, they're all experiencing a politics similar to this of either redistribution or revenge, and you get to pick which of those you want. And so that's kind of where I think this moment in time is. And then somebody's got to come, and I'm particularly thinking about this, in how to get out of this kind of two scorpions in a bottle kind of politics.
Is that possible right now? I mean, I've been thinking a lot about this for a lot of reasons.
Is it possible? It may be, it's two things.
I don't want to sound like Debbie Downer.
It's okay. This is a home game for you. It's your office. So it's possible maybe electorally. It may not be possible from a governing standpoint. So, and remember, sometimes, the public will tell you what they would like, but then how long they want to be hung with that could be something else.
You had a great conversation with David Chalian on his podcast, and one of the things you said I wrote down. You want to restore confidence in democracy, restore confidence and belief in the American dream.
Mm-hmm.
They're not inseparable.
Yeah. Well, there's a couple things. One, if you step back and now think of it, the moment the American dream becomes unaffordable is exactly when American politics becomes unstable. You basically, the basic contract was getting a home, saving for your retirement, saving for your kids' education, affording a health care, and a 2-week vacation. And the moment that becomes further and further out of reach, and only Dana Bash and Rahm Emanuel children get to get access to it, it's no longer the American dream. And people think they just want a shot, and they think they got the shaft.
Yeah.
Now, a lot of people talk about democracy correctly, voter access, motor voter, same-day voting, etc. It's not just a process question. People's belief that the democratic system will work is when they think that they got a shot, not the shaft. And they've been getting the shaft. And I mean, not to age ourselves in this interview.
You're a lot older than I am.
Okay, yeah, let's be very clear. A lot older, okay? And wiser and more experienced there.
Okay, I wouldn't go that far.
Okay. You used to work hard, you could get ahead.
Yeah.
That was at least, if it wasn't true, you believed it to be true. Today, you work hard and you run in place. And you're not going anywhere. You're just on a treadmill sweating. And that, to me, is there's this breakdown, and democracy doesn't get restored just by access or rules or process points. People believe in the system when they believe in their economic livelihood. And the moment Mama Bear thinks the cubs are going to get endangered, and not just Mama Bear, Dad too, they get really upset, and they have every right to be. And that's what's happened. So I believe, and I think it's both bared out in history, you want to restore confidence in democracy, restore confidence in the American dream.
So this is a really simple question, and there's a complicated answer, but how do Democrats do that when, as you said, there's kind of been a shift, and the perception is that the Democrats are the elites, the establishment, the man.
Well, that changed. COVID definitely.
Yeah.
Yeah, we became one of the things that, not to cut off your question, but Henry Kissinger once had a great quote. You have any questions for my answers? So.
You've been in politics.
Yeah.
I've done this a few times.
He was serious. I'm joking. So here is, as a cautionary note, I would say Democrats better not be in the defense. Look, this is perfect. It's not perfect. It needs to change. And one of the things that, whether he's thoughtfully or consciously of this, every time the president is pushing change, we look like the status quo. So you got to watch it. It's a flashing yellow light. This has to change, etc. B, focused on what you want to change. And what I think is the North Star is not just the affordability issue, but the crux of this is around home ownership and housing. It's the core. People aren't happy with healthcare. They don't want to use their 401k as a backstop to their paycheck. But housing not just theoretically builds your equity, it is your stake. And people, and you have a system where it's crazy, where some people have multiple homes and other
So
people
what do you do about that?
Well, there's less focus on mortgages and more focus on home ownership. It's a different concept, a different way to think about it. The good news about this problem, if I may, is you got Freddie Mac, Fannie Mae, all these institutional levers, where a lot of times you have problems and you don't have the levers. Here we have the levers. We got to direct it towards home ownership and people's access, whether that's in and around affordable housing, whether that's first-time home buyers, but direct the system to solving the problem. And if I could, so that's number one, but not on a political point, but just observation given my interests. It's interesting, China faces a problem. They have way too many homes and not enough home buyers. We have a lot of home buyers, but not enough homes.
Yeah.
We have the mirror opposite problems of each other. And it's creating havoc in our collective too politics, and they too have politics. So it's kind of an observation. To me, the party for our ticket out of where we are is making the American dream and the middle class our North Star. We didn't get in here in 3 years or 4 years. We're not going to get out of here, but we're going to work like dogs in service of that dream and making it more accessible. It can't be called the American dream if only 10% of the children and young people can get access to it. Can't be. So therefore, we got to make it the American dream, meaning everybody has a shot at it. That's number one, and that's a core. Just to give you a sense of how bad we are, Democratic Party is less popular than Elon Musk right now. That should be like a wake-up call how bad. And the Republican parties stab you in the back. The Democratic Party, we disappoint you. And I think if you look at these numbers, the Democrats are harder on the Democratic Party than others. And the reason is because they got disappointed. And they have every right to be disappointed in the leadership. But what is interesting to me, at least going into the midterm and 2025 off year, is if you look at every special election and you look at every primary, turnout among Democrats is off the charts.
So how do you square those? People are out there voting, but they're disappointed in their leaders.
Because the good news for Democrats is the voters are into winning. The leadership is in a different place. And not that they don't want to win, but they, as you can, not to take a look, look at the DNC. They're spent 7 months post the election, firing squad in the circle, MIA, missing from action, when this is an existential, if you believe in it, which I do. Donald Trump is a real challenge to not only our politics, but our policy, where we are in the country, where we are in the economy. And there's no Democratic Party. But that doesn't stop Democratic voters from being energized. We got to capture that energy, focus 2026 as a referendum on Republicans and the rubber stamp Congress.
Wait, so let's talk about 2026, because you were the head of the DCCC, the arm of the Democratic Party that elects House Democrats.
I know what it is. You just got to.
I'm explaining it to you out there. I'm sure you know, if you're watching Rahm Emanuel, what the DCCC is. But
U.S. history for 200.
yeah. Want to phone a friend? The and one of the many things that you did in order to have that historic takeover by the Democrats was you went into districts and you found candidates that represented those districts. And that meant that you were finding pretty conservative Democrats. And you also did it in places where there was the ability to have a swing. And right now, the fact that there are only 3 Republicans
Yeah, the real estate is.
serving in Kamala Harris won districts, what do you do about that? The real estate is slim, and it's because of redistricting
Well, this gets back to
and gerrymandering.
Right. Well, redistricting, you've read this. It's not wrong. The system is set up for voters to pick the elected. The elected now pick the voters.
Right.
That's
Exactly.
what's happening. And that's a process point, and it's relevant to this. But go back to 2006. We lose in 2000, we lose in 2002, and we lose in 2004. 3 cycles in a row. 2002 is a redistricting year. And a lot of that back then, if you go back to the rhetoric, was they had put an electoral lock in place. Wave elections can crest above that lock. There's a lock here, but I believe you have this system set up. And what I mean by that is when one party controls Congress and the White House, there's an basic physics there. Energized opposition, that's occurring. Independents breaking 2-1 this way. And a lower turnout among Republicans. That so far, only 6 months in, has proven to be what's playing out. So that's one. 2, I would, today is not 2006, but I would look at any district where Trump has won that district 56% or less.
Okay.
It's not.
So that's, you consider that more swingy.
That, I think, you got to bet, at one point you're going to have to make a bet.
Right.
Yeah, at some point you're going to have to be 7. You're going to have to place it. That may show you my bingo days from my Congress, but you have to show that you believe that. And I think that is how I would pick this, not just districts. Kamala Harris won where there's a Republican, but Trump won with 55 or less or 56 or less. Then the candidate, if there was a innovation, veterans, people out of the national security. You got 6 years of Afghanistan, Iraq, etc. But the whole theory was to get the messenger to be part of your message and allow a group of voters, if it's a swing district, who would get a second look rather than be shut down on the first look.
So, which is why veterans were so huge.
Which is
Tim
also-
Walz.
Well, Tim Walz is an example, but
example.
look at Virginia right now and New Jersey. The two nominees are women out of the national security
That's right.
pool. And both come out of the 2018 class.
But they didn't run on that. They ran on affordability,
Yeah, but their profile,
or they're running.
well, first of all, one was able to avoid a primary,
That's true.
and the other one won a 5-person primary
Right,
with a bigger than turnout, and has had a district that her profile allowed her to
That's true.
take. So we don't know anything about 2025, but we know that the kind of farm team came out of 2018.
So what's the
came out
farm
of-
team now? How does the messenger follow the message in 2020?
Well, again, I don't want to overplay this, having slightly had my hand in creating it. At certain places, like take Chris Murphy out of Connecticut, he was a state senator, but
We are never, ever giving up until we win this fight.
Tim Walz was on an elected school, was on a school board, a teacher, and he was a football coach, but and also National Guard. So it has a variation on it. So there was folks who were police, sheriffs, there were football players. You have to find the person whose background gets this 12% of the electorate to take a second look. And that's district by district, and not so much, it is district by district, but the recruitment is, I wouldn't say 90%,
Yeah.
but it's definitely over 50% of the game.
course. Is it happening now?
I'm not as close to it as I used to be.
But you,
But-
I
but-
mean,
but
you were
what
saying
I'm
you're
reading-
not happy with
but
the
what-
party.
What I'm reading and what I'm seeing is, yes, I would say it's happening.
Can we talk about foreign policy?
I thought that's what we were doing. Okay.
You mentioned China. Obviously, I mean,
Mhm.
your resume is so long, it would take us 25 minutes to talk about it. But your most recent post was ambassador to Japan. And I know that you've been writing a lot about China in particular.
Mm-hmm.
I want to talk about the substance of it, but also about whether or not issues like China, which is, I mean, it's existential economically and,
Mhm.
and in terms of national security. Do voters get that? Or should they be expected to? Or are they just so focused on
So-
what you were describing, which is
No,
the ability to buy a house and
look, there's
feed their kids?
they do get it. Would it be the same conversation you would have on the mountains on a hike in the Aspen Institute? No, but they get that China is not playing by the rules. They get it viscerally. It may not be a theoretical conversation, but they get it. And I want to be clear about one thing. It's not like I had this position. I got fortunate. I was ambassador to Japan. By way of contrast, what I'm saying, when I was mayor,
Mhm.
I made 3 trips to China to bring investments to the United States. In fact, they opened up a rail factory to build subway cars for Chicago Mass Transit, as they did in North Carolina, etc. Companies in China. In my time, and I did certain things when I was congressman. There was a company that was messing with a company in Chicago, etc. When I was chief of staff, try to get CEOs to help us on WTO cases. They wouldn't touch it, even though they would complain to you in private. But my view is, and this is hardened on a couple things. One is intellectual property theft, economic espionage is core to the Chinese message, Chinese economic model. Just is. They've been caught stealing Google's AI technology. I can go through company without taking that time. Second, they use economic coercion. We're seeing Ford plants shut down in the United States because we don't have magnets because they're cutting off critical minerals. They did that to Japan in 2010. They did it to Australia over COVID. They've done it to the Philippines over the South China Sea. They did it to South Korea over the deployment of the THAAD. They use economic coercion as a core instrument in their economic strategy. And the core goal of President Xi strategy is the rest of the world will be dependent on China, and China will be independent of being able to be sanctioned or harmed in any way from the world economy. And that is what they're setting up to do. And China does not, you cannot have an international economic system where China plays by a set of rules for China and the rest of us play by this agreed
That's
upon.
been going on since, I mean, I covered George W. Bush in the White House,
Without,
and that
and
was,
this is
it's been going
get-
for years.
guilty on all parties in Washington. There was this, two things happened, and it also relates to Russia. Russia was allowed to come into NATO, etc., and there was a premise that if they were in the tent, they'd be more invested in the system. China, the same thing. Both 07 Putin's speech in Munich, Xi's basic lie about the international system in the South China Sea in 2012. And we hold on to this, and I say we meaning the West. It's better to have them in the tent than be part of the
So
system.
was that a mistake?
Without a doubt. Yeah, it was a mistake because they told you, and both by word and by deed, we're not playing by these rules. And our goal is to bury you. And we held on to this, they're going to be in the tent, they'll be invested in the system. And they were basically out to bury us. And now the good news is, if there is good news, Xi was so rough in his wolf warrior diplomacy, his economic coercion, he woke the rest of the world up about a decade before China. Now, we're in a race against time to make up for lost time, in the same way that Putin gives you a warning. By 2008, he's invading Georgia, he's doing Moldova, he's now done Ukraine. And
So believe them.
A,
When they
believe them,
show
and
you
B,
who you are, who they are, believe them.
yeah, and they are not your friends. And they are not, my always view, people that are being friendly are not your friends. If they're being friendly, they want something from you. That's not what a friend is. These guys were being friendly, and they're not your friends. And the only way to deal with them is to be upfront and tough on them, not viscerally, just out of kind of being, but being strategic so they get understanding. And China is a threat to the United States economically and national security
So
wise.
you wrote in the Washington Post that they're trying to siphon power ahead of a second Cold War.
Yeah.
Fought over science and technology.
Yes. Now, I want one footnote, small print down here. I hate the Cold War metaphor.
But you used it in your
I
op-ed.
did. Because it's a different Cold War.
Okay.
It's not the Cold War, we can beat the Soviet Union. The Soviet Union was 7% of the world GDP. China's 19%. Soviet Union, we had no trade. We have a $800 billion worth of trade both ways between China
This is a
and the
much
United
bigger
States.
deal.
It's also a different shape and size, so it's not a perfect metaphor. On the other hand, Xi does believe that in the battle against the United States and the battle against the West, dominance of science and technology is where this battlefield, AI, quantum, etc.
Well,
But-
just look at TikTok.
TikTok's an example, but also AI companies. Where the world's going to go on quantum computing, who's going to get there not only first in the technology, but unlike other technology where you can leapfrog, once a country takes a lead in AI, very hard for number two to become number one in that race. And he's decided, and you can see, just follow the dollars, in biotech, AI, quantum go down the list. They're powering massive amount of money, which is why the rest of that sentence in that piece is the cuts to your major university systems in the United States by President Trump is unilateral disarmament in this Cold War. I wrote this piece a long time ago when I was still ambassador, what I learned about China, what I learned about Japan, and what I learned about the United States when I was ambassador. And I always used to say, well, we have this unique innovation and ecosystem, et cetera. Guess what?
It's being dismantled.
Well, yes, it is, but it really is unique. It's not just lip service. We have something, and again, this is a contrast and more than your viewers want to know, but Japan's economic model is built on banks and insurance company, zero risk. Ours is built on funds, which are risk, mutual funds, hedge funds, private equity funds. It's a risk appetite. And the federal dollars from National Institute of Health to a university for a cancer product that becomes a patent, that becomes a company, that becomes a startup is really unique. It's unique in the world. And China is trying to emulate what we do. And we are literally in the process of discombobulating, ripping apart this unique historic model, and China is trying to replicate it.
Because Trump and the people who put him in, particularly from Silicon Valley,
Yeah.
they don't believe philosophically in that process.
I actually,
I know they've all benefited from it,
yeah, one,
but that doesn't mean that they.
right. They've all,
want it to
actually,
continue.
they are going to kill the golden goose that's laying the egg. You can't get from here to there without the research universities and colleges of America that are the corn seed and the Johnny Appleseed of our next great companies. You just can't. There's nothing that replaces it.
So,
And
what-
every private sector
yeah.
research and development innovation, which taxpayers subsidize, is based on something coming out of our universities. Every one of them. So you can't name a cancer drug
Is that
or a HIV drug that didn't start with NIH funding.
okay?
Cannot do it. Understand that your research is a national treasure, not just something you fund and hopefully it will take care of itself. It is a national treasure to be protected, invested, and grown and matured and nurtured.
And
Those are the four
And
parts
when-
of it.
and then when you hear a pushback at, well, that's just big government elitist institutions thinking they know best.
That's a fair point, which is why China's trying to copy everything we're doing and steal everything we're doing. I'm trying to protect everything we're doing and build it here. There's even, and you know this, Dan, even paranoid people have enemies. China is trying to screw us, okay? They are trying to beat us, okay? Here's the thing. When they say they're trying to bury us, for this moment, let's believe them. And what would you do? It's not a theoretical discussion.
Right.
They're in the middle of trying to bury us. Yeah. And so I don't think, and it's not just universities, it's the next healthcare cure to cancer. It's the next illness you have, or it's the next great innovation that will create the next Apple, the next Microsoft, and
And Russia plays into that how, just because it's an alliance that has been forming and is
Well-
formed for.
Russia plays into it because, one, they said they too want to bury you, and second is they, on both an economic and political part, want to ensure that the United States and its allies are buried, and the system that we put up to benefit us is replaced. And we either going to not protect but defend the system that we succeed at, or they're going to have another system. And Russia is very clear and very overt. One side note I would take here, well, they have a conscious decision to take Europe out of being an ally and partner to the United States, and making that their part of their geostrategic sphere of influence, which is a direct threat to us.
Is it working?
I don't think it's working because you had pointed different factors, but you have to see the war in Ukraine as a direct challenge. This is what's weird to me, if I could, and we started on Iraq. We spent well north of $1 trillion, but beyond the money and beyond the fact that it was built on a lie, thousands of men and women lost their lives. Thousands are maimed for life. And we wrote a $1 trillion check plus. Here, not a single American's life is at risk. Not a single American will be maimed for life. And this actually is not built on a lie. It is built on a threat, a direct existential threat. And if we don't stop it here, it's going to get much more costly. And Ukraine is not asking us to fight their fight. I don't mean to be this crass. Compared to Iraq, this is a much better bargain. And we're not doing what we need to do, because if you don't do it here, Georgia leads to Moldova, Moldova leads to Ukraine, Ukraine leads to Latvia, Lithuania, and then you're going to have a challenge to the
But it
system.
is part of the hangover of Iraq. Totally different situations, but the whole Trump doctrine, if you want to call it that, and now he's who knows where he was we don't want to be in wars, and that's why a lot of people said they voted for him.
I'm going to get one side note, and we'll come back at this. Have you noticed something? There's a couple articles recently about the Trump doctrine.
Yeah.
That's one and done, etc. The only, a missile hit Soleimani or a missile hit in the Trump doctrine, The only place in the world that Donald Trump has put boots on the ground and deployed troops is in America. He has never deployed troops in 6 years of a presidency anywhere in the world except for Los Angeles.
It's really interesting.
If you think of what a doctrine is and the deployment of your national defense and security apparatus in
It's been
exercise,
in the air, but not on the ground. Yeah.
Soleimani he's killed in Iraq, Iran he bombs the nuclear facilities, and in LA they get troops on the ground. That's the Trump doctrine. The only place he's actually put boots on the ground is in an American city.
Just a couple more things. As you're talking, and I'm kind of obsessed with this, so
Okay.
all I keep thinking is all of the arguments you're making, there is a huge sector of the population
Why do I feel like this is a
that won't hear you because of information stovepiping. I mean, I hope they do. I hope they watch you on YouTube and watch you on CNN and, maybe if you go on Fox. But the thing that concerns me right now is people hear in their echo chambers. So how do you get through to people who are going to believe what they believe because they're told something by the political leaders that they trust, even though it might not be?
I'm not so sure they trust, and you got to earn it.
Yeah. And that, by the way, that's true for liberals watching liberal media too,
Yeah, I mean,
and conservative. It's both.
that gets back to the difference between being stabbed in the back and also disappointing. I would say if I was listening to my own advice, you don't actually, you say stuff that actually brings you audience rather than
Is
itself.
that possible in this information environment?
It's more than tactics. It is possible. Sure. Look, I remember when Bill Clinton first went on the evening shows, and people were, oh my God, so unpresidential.
Played the saxophone
Yeah.
on our city.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then, every successful presidential campaign finds its own iteration, variation of not only technology, but wider, more mass communication.
Mhm.
I don't think that will change.
No.
No, I don't.
All right. Well, that's good.
I
That
could-
makes me feel better.
Look, I mean, I could be wrong. I mean, the challenge wouldn't be audience so much as how do you distill an argument to 10 seconds?
How often do you think about the language to use? Because
Well, this
language
is-
matters.
I think about it. I mean, first of all, I've been doing it for
No, I know.
President, so I think about it a lot. I do try to, this from, I swim in the morning a mile. So you can either count laps or take a problem, try to solve it. And that occupies your 30 minutes of your mile. So, I mean, if you're trying to communicate, you got to work on it. So I'd be less than I work at it. I think about
While
it.
you swim.
Yeah. I mean, there's different ideas. I mean, my staff when I was mayor, as when I was chief, I used to say the worst thing to do is be at 7 a.m. on the receiving end of a phone call from Brown because I had just been swimming and I just thought of this idea, and they could start the text start flying in.
Does it bum you out that all of a sudden Democrats have decided that cursing is cool?
Well, I was just like, no, it doesn't bum me out. I was 30 years ahead of my time.
I've cursed once during this whole conversation.
Okay, I want to say one thing.
What?
I'm not denying that I do swear, okay?
Yeah.
But okay, you would agree, going all the way back to President Clinton, I've been in the public domain on the congressional
That's
floor.
true. You didn't curse.
Have you?
No.
FCC never came in and did a pause button
No.
once on a floor speech.
But now everybody's doing it in public because they
No,
can.
it's passe for me. I'm gonna move on.
So what are you doing now that they're going to copy you on
Yeah,
in 30 years?
All I'm gonna say is, I'll never forget this. This is true. Secretary of Defense Gates, he was like, in our first meeting, he's selected by Obama, etc. We meet, he goes, my God, you swear like a sailor. About 3 days later was the first article that swearing is good for your mental health. So you have one of these secure packages. So I got the article printed, and it's in one of this top secret stamped by the staff secretary. I said, I want this sent to Secretary Gates immediately. So he gets this package, and over in the package is the articles from, People magazine. how swearing is good for your mental health. I said, I'm taking care of my mental health right there.
Did he love it?
Oh yeah, he wrote back. Yeah,
I think he's was literally the head of the Boy Scouts. So
yeah. So he's talk about a place in.
you know-
Anyway, it's good for your mental health.
I'm from New Jersey. The F word is like a comma where I come from. So
Where I grew up in my house, it's hard to complete a sentence without a swear word.
or get a word in edgewise.
Well, it's the
probably.
only way. Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
Well,
But so all I'm going to say,
Yeah.
I was ahead of my time,
yeah.
and it's always great to be a prophet in that
You're not
way.
going to drop any F bombs?
You'll never ever have me do it publicly.
What?
You
I'm
can't.
trying to think.
35 years, you can't find it.
You mean publicly, like on tape? You've done it publicly, like with a microphone.
No, you can't find me once swearing in any public venue. I have wanted to.
I like this with the phone.
Well,
when you're
that's not
screaming at me.
but that's not a public event. That's me and you. Maybe you should try earbuds. Not that.
Thank you for doing
Thank you.
this.
Thank you very much.